Hello everyone. Today we are going to talk about a sport drama film called Gran Turismo from 2023. Enjoy your viewing. The movie begins with a young man from the UK named Jan, who is passionate about racing in the game Gran Turismo. His father does not share his passion, believing that his son should spend more time outdoors playing soccer with his younger brother. Meanwhile, a marketer named Danny Moore arrives in Tokyo. He proposes a new advertising campaign to Nissan to gather the best Gran Turismo players and turn them into real racers. The proud descendants of the samurai are impressed with the idea and agree, provided that Moore finds the best engineer for the job. Moore calls all the car dealers he knows who work with the racing team, whose face is Nicholas Kappa, the son of the team's founder. When Moore pitches him the idea of a racing academy for experienced gamers, Salter thinks that he's been drawn into a very strange business. He refuses, but during dinner, when Nicholas is rude to him, he changes his mind. Soon after, as one of the record holders in Gran Turismo, Jan receives a special message from Moore inviting him to an online qualifying race. The winner will join the GT Academy, where gamers will be turned into real racers. Jan decides to try his luck and trains at home. His father comes into the room and asks why his son doesn't follow the trajectory suggested by the computer, and Jan replies that he has his own vision of the route. Later, the younger brother bursts into the room to persuade Jan to take his father's car without permission and go out with his friends. Jan refuses, but when he learns that a girl named Audrey will be there, he agrees. He has a little time to talk to her about their plans for the future before the police disperse the youth. On the way back, the friends hit Jan's car, breaking the mirror, which leads to a police stop. Worried that this situation will interfere with his brother's sports career and the upcoming race, Jan escapes from the police using his skills honed in the simulator. However, his ability to drive fast doesn't help when his father finds out that they took his car. The father takes his son to work at the train station to show him what the future holds if he doesn't get his act together. Jan decides to follow his dream and quits his job to catch an online qualifying race. On a proven track, the racer passes one competitor after another, using his own tactics and honed skills. Jan overtakes the leader right before the end of the race, taking first place, and gets a ticket to the GT Academy. His father doesn't want to let him go, but his mother convinces him to give his son a chance. The 10 candidates arrive at the Silverstone circuit, where they are met by Moore and Salter. The engineer immediately states that he does not have much faith in the player's racing talents. He notes Jan's tall stature, doubting that he will fit in the car. Salter also explains that gamers will have to train physically, as they will face significant difficulties during the race. Salter, who is not used to dealing with children, says that over time, the candidates who will take lower places on the list will be eliminated until only 5 remain. They will face a qualifying race to become the potential champion. Days of grueling training begin. Participants practice on real cars, do physical exercises, and practice communicating with the press. The main goal of the event is a promotional campaign. In the course of the training, those students who showed the worst results are eliminated until there are 6 left. Jan is the next candidate for elimination. During a practice run, Jan tries to pass a rival on a corner, but his brakes jam and he crashes into the side. There were no injuries, but Salter, who was riding with him as an instructor, is very unhappy with the outcome. Believing that Jan will fly anyway, Salter confronts him during the debriefing. Jan claims that the maneuver would have been successful if the brakes had been in order. Salter doesn't believe the bold newcomer, but he finds out through experimentation that the brakes are indeed jammed. The engineer then begins to respect the young man and his technical knowledge, and as a result, keeps him on the team. It is the morning of the decisive race. Jan drives the car on the track, passing his teammates. By the beginning of the second lap, he is in 3rd place, but for a long time he cannot improve his position. On the penultimate lap, he takes 2nd place and is breathing down the leader's neck. On the last lap, Jan uses his cornering tactics and accelerates on the final stretch. He and the number 1 are riding close to each other and even finish together, forcing the winner to be determined by a photo finish. Jan wins the race, but Moore suggests choosing his opponent, who looks better in front of the cameras, because it's better for marketing. The racers wait for the result to be announced, and the judge says that Jan has won. The guy celebrates the victory with his losing colleagues and calls home to make his mom happy. But his work is just beginning. In order for Nissan to sign an advertising contract, he needs to obtain an international racing pilot's license. To do this, he has to take part in 7 races around the world and finish at least 4th in one of them. Jan, Moore, and Salter fly to Germany on a private plane. There, he takes part in his first professional race. Among his competitors is Nicholas Kappa, driving a gold-colored car. At the start, Salter warns his mentee on the radio about other drivers who are prone to dirty tricks and aggressive driving. At the beginning of the race, Jan is a bit nervous and insecure behind the wheel. Some of the participants have accidents. One drives off the track, another's engine boils over. On the 20th lap, Jan pulls into the pit stop to refuel the car. He returns to the race in 13th position, but soon begins to make up for lost time and moves up the order. Jan takes 4th place, which is the minimum to get a license. However, Nicolas Capa is breathing down his neck. The rival pushes Jan's car, which causes him to spin on the track. As a result, he finishes 27th. Moore asks Salter if he's happy that he didn't listen to his advice when he was choosing his driver. But the engineer is confident that the guy will prove himself. In the next race, due to problems with the radio, Jan finishes in 23rd place. In the next 3 races, he gradually improved his results, eventually reaching 8th place. It seems that the coveted racing licenses are already in his pocket if things continue to develop at this pace. However, in the penultimate race, Jan was not even able to finish due to a damaged car. He has one last chance to get the contract of his dreams, and to do so, he needs to finish 4th in the race in Dubai. However, from the very start, Capa is not racing fairly against Jan. Despite the broken side mirror, the driver continues the race. He focuses again, making up for lost time, and catches up with Capa. However, Capa does not want to let the newcomer pass, and tries to push him off the track. Dissatisfied with the unsportsmanlike behavior, Jan slows down to enter the turn more smoothly and takes the lead, taking 4th place. But Nicolas doesn't give up. He presses the gas in the corner, trying to pass his rival, but instead, having lost control, crashes into number 3. The 2 cars fly apart on the track. Jan tries to pass them, but a wheel hits his windshield. He pulls into the pit stop, where it turns out that the car is fine. Jan is able to continue the race with a cracked glass, regaining 4th place. The former gamer is confidently moving towards the finish line, not letting anyone else pass him. As a result, Jan is just a little bit ahead of his competitor, getting the coveted license. In the evening, fans even approach him in a cafe for an autograph and a selfie. Salter advises him to spend part of his fee on a first-class ticket for the girl whose photos he looks at every night. Jan takes the advice and contacts Audrey to invite her to Japan to sign a contract. In the country, the guy meets with Gran Turismo executives. There he signs a contract as a professional pilot with Nissan, after which he walks around Tokyo with Audrey, enjoying the exotic culture. The walk ends with a kiss. Jan's next race takes place on the famous and extremely dangerous German circuit. His parents are even watching the race broadcast. He starts off very well, and by the 6th lap, he passes Nicolas, taking 2nd place. Jan stays on the leader's tail, gradually catching up in the air corridor. But at some point, on a steep hill, a gust of headwind lifts his car, and it flies over the fence. The doctors, along with Salter and Moore, carry the injured Jan to the helicopter to take him to the hospital. When he regains consciousness, the first thing he wants to know is whether anyone was injured in the accident. The news that one spectator was killed sends him into a depression. Jan recovers while Moore gives an interview with condolences. Nicolas meets Salter and reminds him that now his protege will disappear just as the engineer himself once did. To prevent this from happening, Salter takes Jan to the track, where he tells him that he himself ended his racing career after a similar incident when not only did his colleague die, but he himself almost burned to death. To prevent the accident from breaking the young man's will, the mentor orders him to get behind the wheel immediately and complete the route, looking fear in the face and overcoming the psychological barrier. Jan listens to him, and together they slowly drive the route, then again to reinforce the lesson. Jan plans to return to the sport, but Moore reports that a petition has appeared online demanding that the gamer be suspended from competitions. Even the sponsors from Nissan are considering it, despite the fact that accidents are a common occurrence at races, including on that fateful hill. Salter proposes to prove the skeptics right by taking part in the famous Le Mans 24-hour race and winning a prize. But to take part in the 24-hour marathon, you need a team of 3 riders who will replace each other during the race. Jan's teammates are Matty and Antonio, his rivals from the GT Academy. Nissan also provides the team with a new car made specifically for Le Mans. As Jan is preparing for the race, his father comes to him to apologize for not supporting his son in his hobbies. The young man shows the logo on his helmet, which he uses as a talisman. This logo is the symbol of the football club where the father played in his youth. In addition to his father, Audrey and other GT Academy members come to watch the competition. The teams enter the race for the opening ceremony. French special forces fly over in a helicopter with the race flag. The athletes then begin the race, but on one of the corners, Jan witnesses 2 cars lose control and fly off the track. He sees one of the cars catch fire, and then Jan is overwhelmed by flashbacks from his tragic last race. Stressed, he loses control of himself and loses speed. His competitors overtake him one by one, and he finds himself at the very bottom of the list. Jan does not respond to Salter's commands. The engineer guesses to play the racer's favorite song over the radio, which he trained to. The music brings Jan out of his stupor and gives him enough energy to get back into the race. Inspired, Jan pushes the gas pedal and makes up as much time as he can. The race continues, the drivers change after a certain number of hours, and the Nissan team's position gradually improves. Even the night and rain do not interfere with the drivers. 19 hours after the start of the race, they are in 9th place, but Antonio starts having cramps at the wheel, and they decide to replace him with Jan early. However, during a pit stop, due to a mechanic's mistake of dropping a nut, Jan is delayed and enters the race from 9th place. To make up for his early stupor, he asks for permission to use his own cornering tactics. Salter is not happy about this, but agrees, because they need to win this race. Jan recalls years of training in a racing simulator, and skillfully passes his rivals on the corners in the wide outside lane. To win the cup, he needs to overtake the 3rd place finisher, who turns out to be Nicolas Capa. Capa himself uses Jan's trick and goes on the outside, but Jan skillfully moves to the inside of the traffic on the final straight. Nissan takes the lead and finishes 3rd. The fans cheer, and the team takes the honorable 3rd place on the podium. Jan looks down on everyone who helped him on this difficult journey. His father, Audrey, Salter, and others. The movie ends with photos of the real-life Jan Mardenborough, who not only served as the prototype of the driver who changed the history of motorsports forever, but also acted as a stand-in for his movie character on the set.
If you have watched the video so far, you should know that I am happy to have viewers like you. Thank you for watching to the end. Subscribe to the channel and follow the news. Klonsak Recapped was with you. See you soon.